The Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Lynette's Shrimp House, located in Highland Park. It's Metro Detroit's premier destination, serving juicy fried shrimp, fish, and wings, alongside soul food sides and new additions to the menu like turkey tacos and desserts. Located at 13548 Woodward in Highland Park, just north of the Davidson, Lynette's is open for takeaway, noon to 8 Tuesday and Thursday, noon to 10 p.m. Friday and Saturday, and noon to 5 p.m. on Sunday. Call now, get some Lynette's. Hey, greetings, everybody. Welcome to the week that was here on the Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit. It is Friday. Some weird sort of noise we had going on there during the commercial. Sorry about that. But hey, you know, we're living in a StreamYard/Zoom world, and we just deal with it as it comes. It's been an incredible week, and there's a ton of stuff to talk about on today's program. I have not one, but two Tucker Carlson clips for you later on in the show today. I think you're going to enjoy those quite a bit. Some tweets, schmucks of the week, and all kinds of good stuff. But here to help me break down all the stuff are my wonderful panelists. We have Allan Lengel, who is the editor and co-founder of Deadline Detroit, with us again today. Thank you, sir.
Hello.
All right, lawyer Steve Fishman in the top right today, the upper square on the Hollywood squares. We appreciate you being here, sir.
I can't wait.
All right. Nancy Derringer, contributor to Deadline Detroit, actually Deadline Detroit staffer, I should say. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it very much. And of course, psychologist Lynn Walsh is with us once again. We appreciate it. Todd Perkins was supposed to join us today, but he had to go to court. I mean, he has a real job like most of us do, but he can't just drop everything to do this show for free like everybody else agrees to do for me, which I do appreciate very, very much. So hopefully he will be joining us. But at some point, if he can, he said he will, and we'll let him in if that happens. But, Lynn, I'm glad you're here today because Tuesday, the big story of the week, obviously, has been the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial, guilty on all three counts in the killing of George Floyd. And the reaction to this has been remarkable. But it seems to me that when that verdict came down, you almost could feel like a weight lifted off of the entire country. I mean, we were watching this so carefully, and there was so much riding on this verdict, it seems, that it really did I felt differently after I witnessed it. I'm not sure how I felt, but I mean, it was a big deal.
Yeah. So, I same. And I was, I happened to be listening yesterday to WDET, and there was someone on the show, and it was a professor who was talking about the experience of being in her classroom with her students. And she's African-American, a lot of her students were, and they listened to the verdict together. And, you could hear the emotion in her voice, and it made me emotional just listening to her. And I'm sure a lot of us saw those moments where people were hugging, and politicians and, people in the street, and it was cathartic in a sense that it was universal. Well, not universal, unfortunately, but for certain people, it was universal. Certainly more so for people, for Black people, who have over and over and over again experienced a lack of acknowledgement for what they've experienced at the hands of law enforcement, or just all of the collectives, racism. And this was a time how many times have we been there where we've seen someone go through this and they get, they're not convicted, they're not held accountable. And every single time how that, adds to the burden, that emotional burden. So what we saw was real catharsis, I think, and a feeling, I don't want to speak for everyone, but, it felt like hope. It felt like, and a lot of people have said, and I agree, it's like, this is just the beginning, this is not the end. This is not like, okay, we got it. This is, all right, maybe now we can start having a different kind of conversation. And I think that is what we saw in a lot of people.
Well, and Steve, I think, something to point out here is just how rare these types of convictions actually are. And I mean, I got to give credit to the prosecution. They did their homework. They laid out a great case. They took this very, very seriously. It doesn't look like they cut any corners in terms of doing their research and getting their case in order. And that's hugely important. I'm not sure that's always the case when we have cases like this.
Well, things are a lot different now than they were back in the day when police officers were going on trial with no video, with only eyewitnesses. And most importantly, let me put it to you this way. This case, to me, and everybody was asking about it during the time of the trial, friends of mine were asking, people in the gym asking, I believed he was going to get convicted of second-degree murder from the beginning. When I heard there was a verdict after such a short period of time, where there had been no notes to the judge asking for a re-instruction on those elements of the offenses, where there had been no notes saying we're a hung jury, I would have bet all the money I had that they were going to convict him of second-degree murder. The reason, though, that the case was so strong, and the reason you're going to start to see more and more cases like that, is because of, number one, body cams and dash cams. It's the videos that make it impossible for a guy like Chauvin, for instance, to get on the witness stand. What exactly was he going to say? You know, the judge went through this whole long charade for 20 minutes about his right to test. It was all a bunch of bullshit. He couldn't have testified because what is he going to say? I had my hands in my pockets because my fingers were cold. I had that look on my face because I'm an asshole. Or what was he going to say? That's number one. Number two, anytime you get police officers from your own department and experts from all over the country coming in to say, look, we looked at this. We saw this. This is crazy. This is criminal. This is murder. That's a second huge thing. But one other thing, if you just give me a couple minutes, what I don't know, I don't sit and watch TV, so I don't know what they all were saying. But the remarkable thing to me about this case, and the thing that really everybody should take home with them, what you had was a mixed jury. Mixed as according to race, mixed according to ethnicity, mixed according to sex, mixed according to age, mixed according to your employment. And that jury of people who didn't know each other, 12 people, were able to go right through that evidence with no questions of the judge, with no pretending like we're hung, and convict the guy of the most serious charge. In my view, very quick. 10 hours is nothing in a trial that took that long. And I think that's what should be celebrated more than anything. The fact that look at the jury. You can't say, oh, it's a bunch of black people. Oh, it's a bunch of white people. There's a bunch of old ladies. There's a bunch of young kids. It's a mix of the community, which is exactly what you want when you're having a trial like this. Kwame's case was very similar. You had 6 black people out of 12 on that jury. You have to have a mix of the community for the verdict to be trusted by the community. And that, to me, was the most singular thing about this.
Go ahead, Allan. I was going to say, well, I think one of the biggest criminal things is, and he may be the schmuck of the year, Tucker Carlson, for trying to imply that the jury only really convicted because of the pressure. I mean, the evidence, as you know, Steve mentioned, the evidence was overwhelming. The idea, I mean, it is unfortunate in the justice system that the jury had to deliberate under the circumstances, knowing that if their verdict had been contrary, had been innocent, the world would have blown up. The country would have blown up. I mean, but that being said, the evidence was so overwhelming, and for Tucker Carlson to suggest that that's the only reason they convicted is because of the pressure is just totally absurd and really criminal. And really, I mean, at some point, it's a shame the airwaves are provided to
I want to actually play some of this. Go ahead, Nancy, and then I'm going to play something. I was just going to say that
Tucker Carlson's job is to say out loud something for conservatives, the kind of people who watch him, to say the next day around their water cooler or their dinner table or wherever. I mean, he basically, it's almost as though he's giving them a script to read from, and he acts it out for them first. And that is something that you heard going into this. That's something you heard afterward. And it's not, and it's the only thing, it's the only tiny, arthritic, bad knee leg that they have to stand on.
Well, I do want to play this though, Nancy.
The racist, with Trump, people would say we love Trump because he says what we're thinking.
Right.
And that's Tucker Carlson's role.
But this is, here's the thing about Tucker's appearance, though, and what he was saying the day of the verdict. He actually had a guest on the program who was a former police officer who basically was saying, this was a bad case. I'm just giving some context. And Tucker basically didn't want any dissenting opinion on this program. Just take a look at this. It's not very long. It'll give you an idea of where Carlson is coming from these days.
Just think that it was excessive and it shouldn't happen. And what I'd like to say,
the guy who did it looks like he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. So I'm kind of more worried about the rest of the country, which, thanks to police inaction, in case you haven't noticed, is like boarded up. So that's more my concern. But I appreciate you coming on. Ed Gavin, thank you. Nope, done. Thank you.
Nope, done. Thank you. And here's some other things that he said in that interview that I think are really, really important.
He's such a dick.
Because, he's trying to suggest that Americans are the real victims as a result of this because police won't do their jobs anymore because they might get convicted of crimes. Here's what he said. He said, let's say people are going through the windows at Macy's and the cops are just standing there. Do they resign because obviously their honor is being violated? When do they start doing something about it and protect everyone else and not just George Floyd?
Well, here's the thing.
George Floyd is dead.
Right.
They didn't protect him at all.
If somebody's going through the windows, here's the thing is they don't have to, they can do their job. Just don't shoot and kill someone or don't behave with this reckless, sort of, I can do anything, which is, I think, unfortunately, not all police officers. I think there are many that are working a hard ass job and doing a very good job at it and are nothing like someone like Derek Chauvin. And so, I think that one of the things the right does is they say that liberals paint all law enforcement with the same brush. And that is not necessarily true for someone who is a thinking person and who understands there's nuance to it. So as far as Tucker Carlson, I just want to, so Tucker Carlson, number one, is an insufferable asshole. I mean, he is an insufferable asshole. And you know what? Sometimes, when it comes to media personas or, you've talked before, you've asked me, like, what do you think about this person or that person who are media personalities? It's hard to say because I don't know what that person is really like in the privacy of their home and what they're doing that's, show. But for someone like Tucker Carlson, what I can say is he is not very different. I bet my bottom dollar, he is not very different than the person we see on the screen. And when it comes to this idea that he says things that people really think around the water cooler, I have a little bit of to some degree, but I have a little bit of a problem. He has a responsibility and he is the one who says those things out loud. And then those people repeat it. I've heard people that say things that they've heard on Fox that I did not hear them saying. I mean, all of us have been around people who have literally said the same exact line. When Trump was president, they would say the same thing. So he does influence those people. I think he's sociopathic. He does not have empathy. He doesn't show me that he has any empathy. He is the maniacal.
He's a rich kid.
But I mean, the white victimhood thing that he's been peddling, though, for a while, and that we saw on display, not just from him, but from a number of other people, even including some Congress people in advance of this, trying to paint anybody that is advocating for police responsibility as Antifa or some sort of a terrorist. I mean, this is a tweet from Madison Cawthorn, who was going to be my schmuck of the week until I found somebody else. But I thought this was actually relevant to this discussion. I'm going to put it up on the bottom half of the screen here. Madison Cawthorn said, American businesses are going to burn tonight regardless of the verdict. And that tells you all you need to know about how the left's belief in the rule of law. I'm sorry. That didn't happen. And the thing is,
do you know what?
People are protesting for a reason.
Yes.
Because these incidents are happening too often. It is not just because they want the world to burn. And it just, that's what they're selling.
This is how they justify their craziness, okay? They justify their craziness by telling themselves lies about the people that they oppose, okay? And so how many tweets, how many Fox News talking heads, how much of the right-wing bullshit propaganda, chatter has been that cities burned all last summer and there were riots all last summer. Now, there were certainly some isolated pockets of problems that went on, long past Memorial Day, which is when all of this started. But in Detroit, I think Detroit Will Breathe marched for something like 100 nights without a serious incident. I mean, there were some little things here and there, but they didn't burn anything. They didn't wreck anything. All they did was march. And it was like this all over the country for the most part.
But Tucker just told us the whole country's boarded up.
Yeah, the whole country's
because the police won't do their jobs because they're afraid to do their jobs.
Right. They're afraid. It's like, again, it's just, he just lies. And the people who who believe like him, eat it up, and repeat the lies.
Well, and I really think this week, though, that we were given a lesson in the nuance of these conversations in regards to police activity. The situation in Columbus with the 16-year-old girl is a completely different situation. And the reaction to that has been wholly different than it was to George Floyd and everything else. I mean, tragedy, obviously, anytime a 16-year-old gets killed, anytime anybody gets killed as a result of something like this. But this is one where if indeed it was all police shootings lead to looting and rioting, well, then there'd be something going on right now. But people are taking a closer look at this one and sitting there, and I think looking at it saying, what was that police officer supposed to do in that situation? So I think people are capable of having nuance in these discussions about what's just and what isn't.
Right. I agree. I mean, I think we have to appreciate that police have to do their jobs. And there are going to be instances where somebody pulls out a gun or a knife and is trying to kill somebody else or kill the officer. And there is justifiable shooting. I mean, we saw that with the young man who shot directly at the cops
in Detroit
and got shot. I mean, there was a question whether the very last shot had to be made in the guy's head, but he was shooting at the cops. I know I'm scared. I get pulled over. I put my hands on the wheel, I'm
relax, old man. We come in peace.
Yes, right. Yeah, but I'm uptight about getting pulled over. So I can imagine being a black person, and particularly in a white neighborhood, it's just.
But so here's the thing though. What I said earlier, the best thing we can have all around the country is video cams, dash cams, body cams, because that incident on San Juan and 6 Mile, and the reason I know it is because that's my old neighborhood, it's where I grew up. If Chief Craig hadn't released that body cam right away, they were already starting to gather up there on 6 Mile. Everybody was starting to make a lot of noise up on 6 Mile. The minute everybody saw that body cam, this kid fired at the police from 10 feet away. How he didn't hit anybody is beyond me. You could see him point the gun and shoot, and then they shoot him. And all of a sudden, you still have a couple of outliers that are still saying somehow, some way, the cops were supposed to magically get the gun from him without shooting him, but all of a sudden it put a stop to it. It's the same thing in Columbus. If you first hear it, God, it's a 16-year-old or 17-year-old, and it's awful. It is awful. The body cam that I saw, my question to people who are saying, oh, the cop could have done this or that or the other, what if you were a parent of the young girl that was pinned up against the car that was about to get stabbed? I don't know about you guys and your experiences, but I've been in the streets enough to see people who are just waving a knife around and people who are getting ready to stab somebody. When you have the knife like this, you're getting ready to stab somebody. And if you were the mother or the father of that girl pinned on that car, did you want the policeman to, oh, ma'am, would you put the knife down, please? I mean, it's a split-second decision. Maybe some great plaintiff's lawyer will figure out a way to get some money out of the city. But in terms of doing your job as a policeman, he's there by himself, right? And he's got 2 seconds to do something or not do something. I know as someone who's represented plenty of cops in shootings, that one, the video would make him not guilty in 15 minutes if we tried that case.
And that's what I wanted to ask about is the the fact that they did put out pretty much all the evidence right off the bat. I mean, it's released before the investigation has even really started in this case, and they turned it over immediately to the independent investigative arm of these types of incidents. Is that something that is going to harm the investigation in any way? Will that make witnesses more or less likely to cooperate? Because there's a whole bunch of people there that know exactly what led up to that incident.
Well, but keep in mind, Craig, when you say they know exactly what led up to that incident, again, I don't know if you've been anywhere where some kind of crazy stuff starts happening. You can ask 10 people, all of whom are eyewitnesses, what did you just see? And 10 people will give you 10 different stories. Nobody's lying. They're in shock. I mean, Lynn could tell us better about the effect of trauma on different individuals. Some people are cool and calm. They can tell you exactly what they saw. Some people go crazy. They can't remember it's 3 people or 30 people out there. It's the videos that you need. You have to have the videos because the videos speak for themselves. And when you're talking from a perspective as a defense lawyer, as a trial lawyer, you can't quarrel. It's like wiretaps. When you hear the person's voice, the only question really is, hey, son, is that you? That's all that matters.
Tell that to Rodney King.
So it's the same thing here. You have to have the videos. Any police departments in this country or any local governments that don't require it from their police departments are doing the police officers a disservice, and they're definitely doing the public a disservice, because you're never going to be able to keep people quiet about it until you can show them what happened. And once they see, then you might be room for a little bit of disagreement here or there, but nobody can say that guy came there to gun down that girl with the knife.
You know, I heard Lynn say a few minutes ago that she felt like that we've turned a corner. I don't think we have turned a corner, but I'm not the optimist that she is. But the thing that blew my mind about this is that some people were still expecting him, Chauvin, to perhaps get off, even though, I mean, you talk about video. We didn't just have one video. We had multiple angles. And I mean, in 9 minutes, a lot of people took a lot of pictures and a lot of video. And for them to, I mean, it just shows how screwed up this situation has been for so long.
Nancy, I know there were people out there saying you'd have to be Helen Keller to look at that video and follow that case and think he was going to get found not guilty. I'm dead.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
I've had a lot of jury trials.
I said that about Rodney King too, though.
I sat on a jury in D.C. It was an attempted murder case. I thought, we're going to deliberate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, convict this guy of attempted murder. The jury was half white, the other and half black. And what happened was we took the first vote after about an hour, and it was 6-6. 6 whites voted to convict. 6 blacks voted, and I was shocked. And at the end, we compromised on intent to do great bodily harm. When the judge did the sentencing, he said, "I don't know what this jury was thinking." He goes, "I thought the evidence was overwhelming." But, so sometimes people just have a different perspective. I mean, the black jurors were so skeptical of the police department. They were so skeptical of the whole system that it was just, it was hard. They were.
That supports Steve's point that you can have 5 or 10 people and we can all be looking at the same thing, but the filter it goes through is entirely different. So that's a perfect example of that, because especially, the experience of people in the Black community with law enforcement, and we all know, if you ever watch The Wire, you'll learn all about it. The experience is, the skepticism that you're speaking of is real, and it's real in a way that none of us can understand, but we have to respect. And that's where, when I say Nancy turn a corner, I guess maybe maybe that wasn't the right term, but I mean, it does feel different. So a little bit different. There's a little bit of hope.
But it's one battle in a long war.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to welcome Greg Bowens, of course, to the conversation here. Better late than never, which we appreciate. He officially was invited today. But Greg, I want to get your take on this, because we've been talking a lot about the Chauvin verdict here, and Lynn and Nancy have been debating whether or not we have sort of turned a corner as a result of this jury decision, this guilty verdict that came through. Does this feel like maybe we've made a step, or is it just basically something that we need to be very careful of at this point in assuming that?
I'd like to be optimistic that we've turned a corner. I'd like to be optimistic that we turned the corner when we elected Barack Obama as president, or, for example, when Kim Worthy prosecuted, what's his name? Budson and Nevers?
Budson and Nevers.
Yeah. And so each time this happens where it looks like that we've turned a corner, I feel hopeful about it, and maybe this is just another step on a long road. I was just talking to somebody earlier today about the verdict, and a Black woman, and we wanted to believe that he was going to be convicted. I mean, it seems so obvious. I would have taken 5 minutes, this guy's guilty. What's for dinner? Because you had 100 people see it, you had a video of it, it just looked so obvious that this was wrong, and yet still there was this sort of pain that he may not be convicted. And I don't know. Some people try to compare it to O.J. Simpson. And I just didn't see that at all.
Completely different.
From that perspective. Yeah, totally different.
I mean, but anyway, I appreciate it. Welcome, Greg. It's good to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Glad you could get in for that part of the conversation because we do have a lot of stuff to talk about today. But I do want to get your thoughts before we move on to something else, though, just about how you felt personally when you did see that verdict come down. And because I know a lot of people were expecting this to go differently. I'm with Steve Fishman on this one, who said that there was no way that this guy was not going to be found guilty on all the charges. I was a little concerned that he wouldn't get the second-degree murder, but they might find him on the manslaughter or something like that. But it came down differently than I think I expected. And I was grateful for that because in my mind, he was obviously guilty.
Well, we were holding hands in our living room, to be honest with you, waiting to hear, what the verdict was going to be. I mean, that's how much tension there was in our house.
I think I have to say, considering the defense had such a poor case to deal with, I thought the guy did a pretty good job of at least trying, attempting. But the evidence was just so overwhelming. There was not much wiggle room there.
No.
I think, Craig, I think part of the problem when you're asking people, if you're asking non-lawyers in general and non-criminal lawyers in particular and non-trial lawyers in particular, as I told you guys earlier, Greg wasn't on then. As soon as I heard, I got 3 phone calls immediately. They have a verdict. I said, don't worry about it. He's convicted of murder too. Guarantee you. Guaranteed. How can you say that? And I already told you guys why. Because the jurors didn't ask any questions and they never said they were hung. It'd be impossible for them to have been coming back with any other verdict. But if you're not used to doing this stuff and you're not a lawyer, you don't try cases. And, some of these people on TV didn't help any, I'm sure, because they're all giving the parade of imaginary horribles out to the public, and people sit and they say, oh, yeah, we're going to get screwed. And, you don't see what's right in front of your eyes. You can't blame people for that. But the media doesn't help any when they sit around and start concocting these ways that supposedly this guy's going to walk. I mean, you don't believe your eyes and ears. It's kind of tough.
This is why I don't have any regret about getting rid of cable, because it gets rid of cable news, because cable news, that is their stock and trade, is put on an endless array of talking heads who will speculate, or as we like to say in the newsroom, talk out their ass about, whatever. And that's what happens.
Let's see, if you get rid of cable news, you don't get to watch Fox and Friends every day, Nancy.
The word that we use,
I agree with Steve.
In Yiddish, the word we use in Yiddish, what they are is they're kochleffels. That means they're pot stirrers.
Oh, okay.
That's the perfect word. Difficult to pronounce if you're not Jewish, but Lengel knows it because that's his first language anyway.
All right, go ahead, Allan, then we're going to move on.
I agree with Steve. When the verdict came back after 10 hours, I thought it's got to be guilty of, but had it gone for a week, which, we've seen convictions of all, we saw Chief Hart trial went on for the deliberations went on, I think for at least 10 days or 2 weeks, and he was convicted. But I thought the longer it goes on, the possibility of a hung jury, even just one holdout, you never know where someone's just going to say, I mean, if you look on Facebook, you look at cable, there's always somebody out there who says, look, the cops have a tough job. He was just doing his job. Why should he be? And I could see somebody, they were fortunate to have a good jury that did the right thing. But sometimes there's an outlier out there.
Well, I'm going to say I thought the prosecution did a great job. Defense, they didn't have a whole lot to defend there. It was tough. But all right, we got to move on here. I do want to talk about Governor Whitmer for just a little bit. She is getting some grief for traveling to Florida against the guidelines or recommendations that are out there from the state to go visit her dad in Florida, who apparently is ailing in some capacity. I'm not sure what Dick Whitmer is dealing with right now, but she's catching a lot of grief for this. In fact, we had a column from Charlie LaDuff on Deadline Detroit, which got a ton of traffic about this. And now maybe a challenger emerging as well in Ronna McDaniel floating to Politico. Ronna Romney McDaniel, by the way, RNC person, that she may take her on next time around. Obviously, they see some vulnerability on the part of Whitmer, but I'm not sure they're going to find a candidate that can beat her. But is the criticism justified in this situation? Who wants to tackle that one first?
I'll say, I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I totally understand. I mean, you want to visit your sick father. At the same time, you're telling other people, hey, use some restraint. We can't, we have to, be selfless and sacrifice. So I think that was the argument there. Then the other thing is, once it comes out, you should be totally transparent and say, yes, I'm assuming she took a private plane. The question is who paid for it, whatever it is.
Why do you assume she took a private plane?
Because if she had gone on a commercial flight,
she would have been seen
in 10 minutes for the word to get out that she was on a plane.
Okay.
But her family, her father's pretty well to do.
Right. And it's her father's plane. Her father may have a plane. Who knows?
Look at Blue Cross compensation. He's not hurting.
Yeah, I'm sure they could pay for a charter. So the question is, she's not getting on a commercial flight. In all likelihood, she did not. And so she didn't expose herself to what a lot of us would do if we were traveling. So I have mixed feelings about it, but I feel like once it comes out, I always feel like in journalism, what we do, and we have a lot of discussions about, ethics and what should and shouldn't be done. I always feel like regardless of what we decide, we shouldn't be ashamed to be transparent about it. And once it comes out, she should say, yes, I took this, I did this. And they tried to say, well, they don't want to talk about her schedule because of all the threats, but it's nonsense. She already went there. You can't turn the time machine back, but that's.
Yeah, I see it both ways too. I mean, I think if I had been in her shoes, you say, look, I tested before I got on the plane. I masked the whole time. I went to see my father. I'm half vaccinated. He was masked. He's been vaccinated. We had a visit. I don't know if it might be the last time I see him. I don't know. Then I got back on the plane and and rinse and repeat. I mean, there's something to be said for that. On the other hand, I don't blame her for not feeling like she needs to share this with, particularly when the people who are demanding it from her, which is to say most Republicans, are dealing with her in such bad faith. And, the people who wanted to kidnap and murder her did not come from the Democratic.
They don't deserve an explanation.
Party. Excuse me?
The people who wanted to kidnap and murder her don't necessarily deserve an explanation as to why she visited her sick father and how she did it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, she's entitled to a private life. Everybody's entitled to a private life.
But when you become governor, I think you give up a lot of that. It doesn't mean you can't have any private life, but it doesn't mean you have to say what you and your husband are doing, in the privacy of your home or whatever. But I think there is, you give up some of that being in public office. I mean.
Well,
Nancy, I have to. Let me.
Well, that's why I said I would do it afterwards. But
go ahead, Greg. Go ahead, Greg. Then Nancy.
From a PR perspective, all these people that are on the stage, on the public stage, have great opportunities to set examples, and not just extreme examples, but the kind of example that could have been set by the governor here is one of compassion and understanding. And when I say that, what I mean is that we all have tough decisions to make, particularly those among us who have to care for aging parents. And so with the need to keep them safe and the need to stop the spread was an opportunity for her to just stand up and say, I have to see my father. He's in poor health. And this is an opportunity to do it. I don't know how much longer we'd be able to do it, or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And take everybody on that journey. But no, Nancy, you don't really have much of a private life. You know this. You don't really have much of a private life on the public stage in that kind of leadership position in the midst of a global pandemic.
Well, that's why I said she should have done it afterward. That she could have announced it afterward. Mm-hmm. But at this and I think afterward it would have certainly satisfied me, but it was never going to satisfy the people who are still there and they're inventing all of these lies. Well, she's locked down the state. It's like the state isn't locked down. The state hasn't been locked down for months. It was never really locked down. It was mainly it was a lot of executive orders that closed businesses and a lot of strong recommendations that she thought people might actually follow because they have some sense of public responsibility. But I guess
that's true. And the thing is that people are looking for a way forward. We're all dealing with the same kind of things. How do we navigate this stuff? And they have the opportunity to teach us, to show us how they navigate it as an example. And Allan Lengel wrote a great column about this, Bring Back the Tough Governor. I agree. I totally agree with that column, Allan. I thought it was really well done. In that we need a steady hand and a steady example to follow. That's what we need. That's what people are looking for.
Well, we are all clearly stir crazy at this point, and people are starting to make unwise decisions when it comes to this. We're so close. I mean, the vaccination numbers keep going up. We've still obviously got a lot of work to do in the city in terms of making sure people get over their vaccine phobias and get in there and do it. Now that everybody's eligible, I fully expect to see these numbers start to decline, especially when it comes to deaths. But hospitalizations are still a problem. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic here, glass half full person, but I do see a light on the horizon here.
I want to see some new approaches. I would like to see an ice cream truck of vaccines. So, seriously, like driving through the neighborhoods with the music or a speaker or something like that, going, "Get your vaccine."
Well, Wayne State's giving away like Grubhub certificates to get students to get vaccinated. I'm like, are people waiting for whatever the best deal is they can get? What are you going to give me?
We've reached the incentive phase. Go ahead,
Nancy. You make a really, really good point with the ice cream truck, in that we have to meet people where they are. So. Example, David Sanchez, who's on the board of LaSed, he wrote an op-ed in the Free Press about how difficult it's going to be to reach Arabic people, Yemeni people, immigrant people, Hispanic folks in Southwest Detroit, because they can't all pile in a car and go down to TCF, because they may get pulled over by, the roaming INS people. And there are language barriers, and they don't want to answer any questions or anything like that. So your ice cream truck idea is really not that bad of an idea.
I liken it to the old swim-mobile that they used to have.
Exactly. Don't forget the bookmobile. Remember the bookmobile?
Yeah, the bookmobile, absolutely.
We also forget that a lot of people are not as well informed as we are. I mean, I was shocked to hear that a lot of people that are being hesitant about this still think they're going to get charged for it. And it's like, no, it's free. It's free to everybody. It's free no matter what. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to show, all you have to do is show an ID so they can keep a record. So,
I mean, it's interesting that, even with the Johnson & Johnson, which I think they're going to supposedly make a decision today about that vaccine. And we're talking about, what was it? Six people had gotten blood clots, which is a scary thing, out of like 8 million people who have gotten it. And there are a lot of medications out there and that have side effects, potentially warnings like that, including the pill,
birth control pills.
But here's the thing.
And people,
Johnson & Johnson, you're less likely to get blood clots from Johnson & Johnson than you are to die if you get the coronavirus. Right. So, I mean, that's something to keep it in perspective. If you look at the numbers here, it's a minuscule percentage of the population. I think it's going to get back out there and people will do it. And I think there's a lot of people that like the idea of one shot being 80% protected. That's still better than your typical flu vaccine in any given year. And so it gives you a measure of protection, especially for some of the younger people out there that aren't going to feel the significant impact of this.
And
but
it's important.
But I still want to talk about the psychology, though, of the people who are denying that this is a real problem. Bob Winowski in the Detroit News today put out a column telling people that, hey, man, I had coronavirus and it sucked. And then there's people in the comment section saying, quit putting out misinformation. It's not a bad disease. I'm like, misinformation? This is his own personal experience. And Lynn, I mean, I'm trying to understand the mentality behind people not believing what is actually right in front of them.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Let's let the psychologist handle this one first.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
A lot of those people who are, I mean, at least anecdotally, a lot of the people that I've talked to personally or heard from personally who are the deniers or who are saying this is like the flu or it's not that bad or whatever it is, do tend to be, right of center. And that's because they've been inundated with that messaging from way back when, I mean, these are all things that were said by all these people on Fox and Rush Limbaugh and Trump himself and whatever. So they tend, the impact of that was significant, and it still is. I read a statistic that 70% of white men who identify as Republican say over 50 say they will never get the vaccination. And that's really one of the biggest populations, that we're trying to protect. So the psychology of people denying that this is a real thing, first, it really is this us and them, or us against them psychology. If you are a Republican person or a right-leaning person, or if you're a person, say, who understandably is like a little bit leery of the government saying you should get the shot, okay? They need, you need to spend time and money and effort trying to continue to educate. But it's hard with people, particularly the Republican people who are denying it, because there's nothing you can say that if they say, well, that's the left-leaning media that is trying to tell me this, and I got sick, but I didn't die. They think that their experience explains everybody's experience. Even if you show them data and numbers that says, okay, you got it and you didn't die, but all of these other people did, and a lot of them are not, over 80 years old or had pre-existing conditions. We don't really know, because it is a newer disease. We don't know why one person who's 50 years old with no pre-existing conditions dies and the other one barely has a sniffle. We don't know. That's why it makes sense for us to get vaccinated and to do all the things that we're supposed to do so the goddamn thing goes away, but well, so
I agree. And
question, I'm not sure.
No, it does. And Lynn, I know, has a Schmuck of the Week nominee a little bit later on that has something directly to do with COVID. But
what Lynn was just adding to what Lynn was saying, I mean,
got other stuff to get to.
Okay, I'll say real
no,
quickly.
Go ahead, real fast.
Is that people just have no empathy? They just they just don't understand. They say it's not happening to me, so what? It's the same thing with the Chauvin trial. So what? I'm not black. Why do I care? It's like, so what? I don't have COVID. Why should I care? I'm healthy. I went this. I'm doing everything. Why do I care? I don't believe it. So
30 seconds. Just give me 30 seconds. I think that everybody that's on this panel, at least I'm pretty sure, I know for sure, Greg and Allan know. The truth of the matter is, all you have to do is know people, like a guy whose picture's in here on my basketball team from high school, who died of it. Mm-hmm. Dwight Jones, who died of it. Benny Napoleon, who died of it. Dalton Roberson. These are friends of ours, good friends. Once that happens, the people who walk around saying, oh, who cares? That's because they don't know anyone that's had it and died. So it's easy to have no empathy, right? But once you have friends of yours, 5, 6, 8, 10 people that that were healthy and they died, it's pretty tough to deny the fact that this is a killer disease. That's all.
All right. Before we move on, and we were talking about the governor at the beginning of this segment here. Anybody have any thoughts on Ronna Romney McDaniel potentially jumping into the governor's race here in the state?
I think she has been. She has sucked up to Trump and such, including willing to give up her middle name, which is not posted.
I bet you she switches it back in Michigan.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The Romney name suddenly. I mean, I've heard she's a very nice person, but boy, she does not really stand for much.
Well, I follow her on Twitter, and every single day is just another spoonful of BS that she puts down the Twitter hole every single day. So anyway, I want to talk about that. Hey, real fast. And we'll have more time to talk about this as the year goes on. But the filing deadline just happened the other day. The one thing that we do know at this point is that there is going to be a radically different Detroit City Council this time next year. 4 seats are open for various reasons, people not seeking re-election in 4 of those districts. And a couple of people that I thought might leave their district to run at large didn't do so. So like Andre Spivey's not going to be there. And you've got Raquel Castaneda-Lopez is not going to be there. Gabe Leland is not going to be there. And of course, Brenda Jones deciding that she doesn't want to seek another term. Greg, we don't get turnover like this very often on the Detroit City Council.
Well, we do when we get an emergency manager.
Yeah, well, that's very true. Yeah. You make a point.
But I mean, all right, it's a small one. I do think that part of what is happening is a result of the lingering effects of having an emergency manager. And when I say that, there used to be a time when being on city council was a really big deal. you had, you know, a citywide presence. You had you could put your thumb on things to make things happen, whether it was casinos or parking or whatever it is. But now that it's been shaped down to districts, and after this, you know, we've lived through an emergency manager situation where they just took all their power. It's hard for people to name all the folks on city council. It is.
Well, and I think the pressure on the actual district representatives is there because people are like, you represent my district. They're actually expecting results, which the citywide seats don't really face that same kind of direct pressure from residents.
I think it's better government to do it with by district. I mean, it may be less exciting for a political consultant like Greg, but to somebody who has lived with at-large and by district representation, it's better. You just have somebody you can call, and I know that's part of what the district managers are supposed to be. But I think this is it's a better system, even if it does mean. You're less of a presence, as you said.
Well, the threshold to get on city council is lower. It's easier to get a seat on city council now than it was before because you can concentrate on a smaller area. You can literally knock on every door, you know, if you get to put your tennis shoes on and hustle up. So that's different. Whereas before citywide, you couldn't do that. At the same time, this kind of turnover that we're having now is the kind of turnover that we're going to see a lot. Because once somebody gets vested, they serve, you know, I think it's 2 terms or 3 terms. No, 2 terms, actually, before you're like vested. That means you get a pension. That means you're able to, you know, sort of, you know, retire kind of young here on these kind of things. And why wouldn't you do it? And you know what's another. You know what it reminds me of there, Nancy, since you're, you know, loving your little neighborhood city council person here.
What does it remind you of?
It reminds me of being on the Wayne County Commission. You know,
or the job for life.
Well,
yeah, I mean, you know, you got
meet like once a month.
and nobody can name them. I mean, who are they? What do they do?
Tim Killeen was my guy for a long time.
He's still the guy.
I know he is. I used to talk to him every day outside the Guardian building. So
I mean, that is a great gig. That's the best political job out there. There's no
interestingly, real quick, that's a discussion for another day, I promise. But sure. In the mayor's race, obviously, Mayor Duggan seeking a 3rd term. Tom Barrow jumping back in for another attempt at this, and Anthony Adams, former deputy mayor under Kwame Kilpatrick. See any competition for Duggan? Anybody?
I don't. He's not going to break a sweat.
I don't. I think we're, you know, the primary's in August, which is not that far off. You know, Anthony Adams, I see he's got a billboard in Midtown on Woodward. Yep. Tom Barrow's just, you know, unfortunately, he's a perennial loser. I mean, he's lost so many mayoral races. I don't know how you know.
The Harold Stassen of the Detroit mayor race.
Yeah, and who knows what do they stand for? What do they? We have no idea what these guys are going to bring to the table that Duggan doesn't. At this point, at least.
Oh my God, you white people kill me. You know, I just. I love you guys. I love you guys. I know all of you. You know, you're missing the conversation, the opportunity to have the conversation in relationship to Black identity, Black destiny, Black economic empowerment, all those things. Now Duggan, to his credit, Mayor Duggan, I say that he has grown in his ability to speak to Blackness in a way that doesn't scare white people and doesn't offend Black people. For example, when he was talking about the J&J vaccine, I don't think he went far enough in saying, look, we don't need to have this cheap stuff being hoisted on the Black community. You know, we're going to stick with the 2 shots. But then he abandoned that, and lo and behold, now it's on pause. Anyway, the point is that he has grown in his ability to speak Black, to understand and address Black issues without just sort of like avoiding it. At the same time, you've got folks out there who are really upset. They're upset about the way that, you know, the economics have always focused on downtown. They're still mad about that. Housing prices have gone through the roof. It's impossible for folks to get a house now. You still got the whole tax issue in relationship to folks being overtaxed. I mean, there are some serious issues that are going on. And I would not, I think Mike Duggan as mayor has been freed up in ways that we haven't seen before. I mean, he's a single guy. He's gone through a public divorce. I mean, I'm saying he's freer now.
I look forward to having this conversation. All I'm saying
We're
is
not having it. No.
All we were asked about was whether we thought he was going to win.
No,
but he's going to win. But I think
he said, does he have a chance? That's what he said.
No, I said. I did not say a chance. I said, is he facing any competition here? I mean,
of course,
something along those lines. But I think Anthony Adams will get some money. He'll get some backers, and I think he'll at least make a debate interesting because he does have experience. I think he has been courting a big portion of the community for the last couple of years, getting ready for this. I'm looking forward to a debate. I'd like to hear it.
I think last time when Coleman Young, the second, ran, it seemed like he was really pushing the issues quite a bit, and I think things came out of it. I think the big issue, the recurring theme was about resurrecting the neighborhoods and not concentrate as much on downtown. I'm not hearing any. I mean, I'm on the Adolph Mongo show on Saturdays on 9:10 a.m. There are people who don't like Duggan. There's no question about that. But I don't hear any issues really right now, and I don't see what was happening last time, where there were new themes coming up, even from the mayor's office. We're not seeing that.
Here's the thing. I mean, any candidate can point out that there are a number of problems in Detroit. This is something we know, and something that some of us have been working on quite hard for the last several years and trying to fix some of these issues. They're not easy. These are some intractable problems that we've had in the city for a long time, related to a whole bunch of different things. And so candidates can complain, but I think residents in Detroit are at this point sitting there saying, show me the plan, because we've tried a bunch of this stuff and it hasn't happened. You can talk about opportunity zones. You can talk about this kind of stuff. It hasn't done anything for my neighborhood. Meanwhile, this guy who's been in office did tear down a bunch of houses. He did actually, help some of my stores in my neighborhood get reaoberpened. They're going to see that sort of stuff. And it's going to be tough to counter, I think.
But you know what? Let's not. I mean, come on, guys. I know race can be like a touchy issue for some of us here, but the idea that the blackest city in America has a white mayor is a national embarrassment for black folks.
But they elected him twice.
I know. I understand
an overwhelming margin.
Right. I get that. But
you can look at it that way. It is an embarrassment. I mean, there's some people who clearly look. I was on 9:10 a.m. last week, and some woman called up and said, I want to say that Allan Lengel doesn't have a dog in a fight, and he's the problem. And I said, why? Because I'm white. I mean, the idea is that...
And she said, yes.
May I point out the irony that of the 6 faces on the screen right now, Allan is the only one who lives in the city of Detroit. So,
whoa,
there we go.
Interesting. All right. Hold on. We've got to move on, because before we get to Schmuck of the Week, I'm sorry, we're running out of time.
Wait, no. Why is that ironic?
I just, we're all talking about the city.
I mean, let's speak plainly. Speak plainly.
I'm speaking plainly. I just said we're all talking about the city, and the only person here who actually can vote in that election is the one guy up there. So
it's true.
There we go.
All right. We have to get to Schmuck of the Week here in just a second. But first, I want to update. Last week, my Schmuck of the Week was, of course, Tucker Carlson. And if you all recall, the Fox News host has been talking about so-called replacement theory, this notion that immigrants and stuff are going to basically dilute the political and social power of white people in America. That's what he said. So then Ted Lieu, of course, a congressman from California, comes out and is critical of somebody else who's peddling this nonsense as well. And here was Tucker's response on Fox News just the other night.
Dear Scott Perry, native-born Americans like you are no more American and no less American than an immigrant like me. Good point. We agree with that. And then he said this, and with every passing year, there will be more people who look like me in the United States. You can't stop it. So take your racist replacement theory and shove it. In other words, you're being replaced, and there's nothing you can do about it. So shut up.
Is that a well man?
Tucker
Is that a well man? Is that a well man, Lynn?
and Don Jr. are partying together. I'm just going to say it there.
I just had to play that.
I mean, you know, all we needed right there was a tiki torch.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I mean, this is a guy that has, you know, I mean, he's lost his marbles or he is losing his marbles. And it's not a technical term, but you know, it's interesting. So the buzzword there, so the replacement theory, you know, isn't that one of the phrases that the neo-Nazis use?
Jews will not replace us.
Yeah, the torture.
So it's this code, and
not even a code
He's not
anymore.
even trying to hide it. You know, they're saying immigrants or someone that doesn't look like me they're the reason why everything is bad, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, I guess it's a popular show, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
So I hear so much about him. And the other day I turned it on for I was like, I won't watch for more than 5 minutes, but I kind of need to see what people are seeing. And, you know, and I watched the 5 minutes of it and, you know, and I know that knowing that it's a really popular show and quite frankly, knowing that a lot of, you know, I come from a family of, you know, Macomb County Trump supporters, and that's hard, and I deal with that in my own therapy. But you know, knowing that this is,
I wish that was funny.
I mean, it's funny, but it's also pretty depressing.
Yeah.
They watch this, and they're thinking, yes, he knows what I feel. You know, the Goebbels craziness is, you know, I mean, it's just off the rails, and the sad thing is we can watch him and say, this is a not well person. You know, any of us can say that. But
very true. Well, hold on a second. Hold that thought, because we are running out of time and we do have to do something very important on the program this week.
And now it's time for Deadline Detroit's nominees for Schmuck of the Week.
Schmuck of the Week nominees. And Lynn, I'm going to give you a break for just a second. Who wants to go first this week with their Schmuck nominee? Nancy Derringer. All right.
I'm going with Ronna McDaniel. Ronna, don't call me Romney McDaniel. I took a few minutes before the show to actually look up her full resume because she keeps being described as a politician. She has never held political office. She has shown that she is willing to bootlick the most vile president in American history to the extent of even denying her family name, at least in her public presentation of it. And for her to, I guess I'm reaching a point now after the Trump era is ending, is I'm like, I don't want to hear anything else, any more shit talk about career politicians anymore. We need more career politicians. And the idea that you can go from essentially, I think she worked in the media business and she had some, mean, her resume is, she was like for some radio or, you know, media production firm into running the Republican Party, and then think that somehow this skill set can be adapted to the chief executive of a state the size and complexity of Michigan is so insulting to the average voter. I can't even.
I'm putting in an official vote in support of unelected bureaucrats everywhere. Those are the people that actually make your government run, people, and they're doing a good job. And if you take a look at the vaccine rollout and how we're able to actually get that done, once you let the unelected bureaucrats do their freaking jobs, guess what? We can actually function as a society. So guess what? Unelected bureaucrats and actual politicians are not bad things. People that understand compromise and what it means to actually do something that's good for everybody.
Done. I don't want to hear any more, well, she's never met a payroll. It's like, who cares?
Exactly.
So anyway.
Hey, when you print money, you don't need to.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. Who wants to go next? Allan Lengel.
I nominate Alan Dershowitz.
Wow,
who appeared on the Ingram angle. And I've been so disappointed with this
that
guy
show was awful.
Over the years. I mean, he went from this great, I thought, intellect, great legal mind, to this crazy Giuliani type figure who's just doing crazy and saying stupid things. He said he was on the Ingraham angle the other night on Fox, and he said that he thought that Derek Chauvin should be kept out free pending his appeal. And he says, how's he going to get back his 2 years if it, gets reversed or whatever, or, they call for a new trial. And my feeling is, and Steve can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I've rarely seen anybody convicted on second-degree murder where the judge says, all right, yeah, let's see how your case plays out. I could see if the evidence was so ambiguous and the judge just thought it was such a grave injustice that maybe in a rare occasion, but I've rarely. I mean, look, Kwame Kilpatrick, when he was sentenced, normally a white-collar criminal is allowed to report on his own or her own to a prison, and they handcuffed Kwame, and they handcuffed him right there on the scene and took him away. So I don't know, Steve, maybe you can clarify, but I thought it was kind of outrageous that he said, and suggesting that maybe he could stay out for another 2 years until his
he's a murderer.
Plays out.
He was convicted of murder.
The evidence was so overwhelming. I can't see,
I don't know another murderer that's not going to be held in custody awaiting.
And he said you should be treated like everyone else. Well, he was.
Yeah, exactly. All right, who wants to go next with their Schmuck of the Week?
I'll go.
All right, Greg Bowens.
My Schmuck of the week. My Schmuck of the week is Ted Nugent. What a goofball.
Lynn and Greg together.
You came out late.
That's all right. You both can make points on this one, so that's fine.
I'm just saying, what? I came on late. Oh, because, that's the Schmuck of the week, man. This guy, he gets COVID. He doesn't being on the public stage of life, being able to set an example. You can sort of lead and help people understand and instead, no.
This is a man that soiled his pants to get out of the draft, Greg.
I don't even believe that story anymore. That sounds like I just don't. I think he made that bullshit up.
Maybe he did, but if he made it up, then anyway. Yeah. All right, Lynn, what was your takeaway on that one?
Yeah, that was my Schmuck of the week too. Well, my take is that he first of all the Schadenfreude was so delicious. I needed to take a moment when I read that piece. Seriously.
You try not to feel happy about these things.
It was good. It was really
all right.
He was such a denier, and then he got it, and I think it was a tweet or an article or something, but he said he was so sick. But then he went back at the end of it. He said it was still kind of a rant on the left, and he said he was going to go pee off the end of his deck, and then so he's just a lunatic. So, but the fact that he had a moment, he's such a jerk. But he could have come back and said, what, guys, I was wrong, or hey, this was pretty bad. You might want to think about getting a vaccination. But he didn't. So
he lives in Texas these days, does he not?
I believe so.
I mean, is there any way we could ask him to gently retire the Motor City part of the Motor City Madman moniker and just say, hey, you know what? Can you give that back here? Because,
I feel the same way.
You could be like the Dallas Madman or whatever it is.
The Texas Michigan.
There you go. All right, Steve Fishman, who you got?
I hate to do this, but I'm going with Tucker Carlson again. And the reason is pretty simple.
His body of work is strong this week.
Lengel for sure will understand this. When you hear this talk about replacement theory, this is the exact same thing that 120 years ago, when my grandparents came from Russia, when the Jews were coming from Europe, that was exactly the same kind of conversation. They couldn't have it on national television. They couldn't have it. They did it to the Irish. They did it to the Italians, and they can't do it to black people because they put black people in freighters and brought them over here as slaves. But you know damn well what they mean. And for a guy like that, with an audience that he has, and we talked about that earlier, for him to be able to say out loud the things that some of them may be thinking, and maybe some of them even have enough sense not to say out loud. He says this out loud on I think Allan said it's the highest rated program on television.
On Fox.
He's to me, and the only thing I wish for him is that he had to come down to Mumford High School at one of our reunions, let's say, and let him talk that kind of shit around all of us.
Now, the only thing I think that could possibly be better is in terms of a punishment for Tucker Carlson is if he was to be replaced on Fox News with the ghost of Sammy Davis Jr., a black Jewish guy.
If only life were like that.
Sammy Davis when he hugged Nixon.
All right, I've got one here that's a little off the beaten path, but I found it this morning, and I thought it was fantastic for a couple of different reasons. Mine is a guy named Jonathan Van Boskirk. Now, he wrote a column for the Orlando Sentinel talking about how he is disappointed in Disney World. And here's the title of this.
That right before we went on.
I love Disney World, but wokeness is ruining the experience. Now, this guy, first of all, he's like, I don't know, 50, 60 years old, and he goes to Disney World every freaking year, it costs thousands of dollars. And I'm sorry, but Disney World, for as much as you spend at Disney, you could actually go see the places that you see at Epcot for yourself. You could go around the world for what it costs to go to Disney. But here's the thing.
Get the mouse ears.
But, well, you probably could, actually. I'm not sure. But the best part about this is that the guy's pissed off at Disney World because he says that they are becoming too political, because they are removing references to Song of the South and a couple of their rides. Like Splash Mountain used to have a Song of the South theme, but now they don't anymore. I'm like, well, Song of the South hasn't been out on video in Disney for what? 30 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So this guy's worried that they're taking the racist imagery off of the rides, and that's why Disney's becoming too woke. And his family doesn't enjoy the rides anymore because they don't have the racist crap in it.
I heard they also have changed. They've eliminated the auction of wenches to be brides from the Pirates of the Caribbean as well. So it's like,
yes. That takes away the fun of.
We need some more rape crap in there too.
Well, exactly. So they're changing that kind of stuff, and this is what he's suggesting, that Disney is becoming woke. Therefore, his family's experience is being diminished somehow. And I'm sorry, but you know what? Maybe it's time for you to move on to another vacation destination. Universal Studios is just across the freaking street. You could always go there, or perhaps maybe take the money you spend at Disney and take the family to Fiji or something, because that's about the same price.
You need to know, though, that there is a very large constituency of people like that at Disney World.
I get that.
A friend of mine, a friend of a friend, married a guy. They went there on their honeymoon and came back so enamored of the place that they moved to Orlando, and they have some special ultra elite ticket license that allows them to come every single day.
Well, maybe they're dead and already in hell. And they just don't realize it. Because I took my kid there when he was little to Disneyland, and you know what? That was the last time. I'm like, I've done that now. I don't have to do that again.
We don't have to.
I don't have to do that again. And it's like, it's like $200 a day or something like that, just for one person to get in.
You have to sell a kidney to get into that.
I know, but anyway, that was my schmuck of the week. I just wanted to sort of lighten things up a little bit. Dude, it's freaking
where
Disney.
Do you find these guys, man?
You're a grown man. Stop it. It's the magic of the internet, Greg. It's a fact.
I know your picks are always like, Jeopardy.
It's potpourri.
Like a Jeopardy question,
Right. Schmucks for 200, Alex. All right.
I know, right?
Well, we didn't get around to talking about DC statehood today. I wanted to do that. Maybe we'll bring it up next week because I think that's a good discussion.
I have very strong feelings about that. Having lived there for a long time.
Well, I'll tell you what, then we'll do it next week for sure. We'll make sure that that's on the agenda because I've got some thoughts on it too, and I'm hearing some really, really dumb arguments from people who are opposed to it that I want to get into, and we'll do that next week. But we are out of time for today. I want to thank my guests today. Greg Bowens, thanks, bud. Appreciate it very much. Sorry you had a little trouble getting in today, but I'm glad you found us, and thank you for being here. Lynn Walsh, thank you. As always, we always appreciate you being with us and enlightening us on all things mental. Steve Fishman, thanks for your insights as well, sir. Thank you.
I'm bringing my dog the next time, like Lynn and Greg.
I've got a cat. I've got a cat, so maybe I'll have
my
pet
dog
show.
is a hound. He wants to be on
there
TV.
You go. That's it. And Nancy Derringer and Allan Lengel, thank you both. We will see you next week. Thanks to Michael Lucido for engineering the broadcast. Thanks to Lynette's Shrimp House for sponsoring this show. I always appreciate them. By the way, it's on Woodward and Highland Park. You can't miss it. Just north of the Davison on the east side of the street, like right when you cross the bridge. It's right there, and they've got some fantastic stuff.
I'm going there today.
There you go.
Fried shrimp, man. Those fried shrimp.
And the ribs are good and everything else, too. They got all sorts of good stuff over there. So check it out. We appreciate their help. And don't forget, become a member at Deadline Detroit, deadlinedetroit.com/membership. $3 a month is all we ask. And there is some really, really good stuff up on the site right now. So go to deadlinedetroit.com every day. Check it out. We appreciate your support, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. And we've got a little bit more time to keep doing this, Allan.
Stay home safely.
The Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Lynette's Shrimp House, located in Highland Park. It's Metro Detroit's premier destination, serving juicy fried shrimp, fish, and wings alongside soul food sides and new additions to the menu like turkey tacos and desserts. Located at 13548 Woodward in Highland Park, just north of the Davison, Lynette's is open for takeaway noon to 8 Tuesday and Thursday, noon to 10 p.m. Friday and Saturday, and noon to 5 p.m. on Sunday. Call now, get some Lynette's.